Hi everyone, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. So in today's video we are going to be learning how to go about the making of this off-shoulder wrap top. So if this is something you're interested in, keep on watching and let's get started. So guys, you can use any fabric of your choice for this particular tutorial. What I have here is African print, and what I have is about 1.5 yards. But if you want to make this, you need about 2 to 2.5 yards, because mine was a little bit too short on the sleeve because I didn't have enough fabric. So this is the fabric I'm going to be using. As you can see, now we are going to go ahead and draft out the pattern. I'm just going to be using a basic back bodice, which I've done severally on the channel. So guys, I already drew a straight line across, which is our shoulder line. So from the shoulder line, I am marking down to 10 inches, which is my bust point. And then from the shoulder again, I'm leaving my tape at the top. I'm coming down to 17 inches. This is how long I want this top to be. So it's going to be like a little bit cropped, okay? So I just marked it at 17 inches here. So I'm drawing straight lines across these 2 points. So we have the shoulder line, the bust line, and the waistline, okay? So now once you're done drawing out these lines, on the first line, which is the shoulder line, you're going to divide your shoulder measurement into 2 and make a point. Then from the center again, you go in by 3 inches for your neck width, and then come down by 1.5 inches for your neck depth. Now you can make it wider if you are bigger in size, okay? So I'm going to join these 2 points to give me a small round neckline. Remember, we are drafting out the back pattern. Now for this point here, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So from this new point here, I'm going to connect to meet the top of my neckline. This is because our shoulder is not straight, okay? So now from this point, I am going to measure down to my armhole depth, which is gotten by dividing your bust measurement by 6, and whatever you get, you add 1.5 to it. So I just use that measurement to draw a straight line across. This new line is usually referred to as the chest line. That is what I call it most times. So now from the top of the shoulder here, I'm going to just make dotted lines to meet the new chest line. If you have a pencil, just use a pencil to draw this out, okay? Now from the shoulder to the chest line, I marked the midpoint, and on the midpoint that I marked, I went in by 1/2 inch. Now on this new chest line, I am going to divide my bust measurement into 4 and make a point here. Now I'll be using my armhole curve to connect all the 3 points together to give me the armhole curve. So now on the bust line, divide your bust measurement by 4 and make a point. Now we're going to determine where our dart is going to be. So my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. I just marked it on the waistline and on the bust line, but I'll be extending this straight line I'm creating with it all the way to the chest line. So I'll be coming out by 1/2 inch on both sides of this line. You guys should be used to this by now. And from this point I came out by, I'm just going to draw all the way to the chest line. Now this is because we are drafting the back pattern. If it was the bust, the front pattern will be stopping on the bust line, okay? We already added our body measurement to the bust line and chest line. So now to the waistline, I'll mark my waist measurement divided by 4. And because we have a dart here, which is about 1 inch, I'm going to replace the dart. I did add any stitching allowance to the bodice while I was drafting this out. So we'll be adding the stitching allowance when we are cutting out. So I'll just go ahead and join all the last points together, and I'll go ahead and cut this piece out. So this is a basic back pattern. So this is my basic back bodice. The length is from my shoulder down to my waist. That's where this ended because I want it to be a crop top, okay? So now because this is off shoulder, we're going to be taking a little bit of some inches away from the top so that we can make this back bodice an off shoulder. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is from the top of my shoulder here on the back pattern, I am going to come down by 5 inches. Now this depends on how open you want your top to be, but for this one, from the shoulder I came down by 5 inches and made a point, and I'm going to draw a straight line across and cut off from this new line I just drew. So this back pattern, I'm removing the upper part so that we just use the bottom part, which is going to be like an off shoulder. Okay, so you see what I have here. So now I'm going to use this to cut out on my actual fabric. I'll be cutting the back pattern first. So I placed this on my fabric. As you can see, it was in a fold. To cut out the back pattern, I added stitching allowance to this side. Remember, there's no stitching allowance added to the pattern at all, so I added about ½ inch to this side. But if you want to line your own, you need to add more inches for stitching allowance. I added ½ inch to the top and the bottom as well, but didn't add any stitching allowance to the armhole area. Okay, now I'll be using this back pattern to cut out the front piece. Now the way you are going to do this is we're just going to make some adjustments to this back pattern. So this line where the armhole stops is the chest line, right? Now if we are going to be cutting a curve and it ends on the chest line, we know that our breast is not going to be showing too much. But if it comes all the way to the other line, which is the bust line, it's going to be more revealing. So I'm going to be ending my curve on the chest line, which is the line that ends on the armhole. So I will just use my pattern master right now. I'm just going to place it just like you see me doing like this, and from the chest line I'll just draw a curve to meet the top of this pattern paper. So once you're through with this, just go ahead and cut it out. Now you've given it a kind of V neckline. Okay, now I'm going to place this on my actual fabric, which I've done here. The fabric is folded into two because we are cutting the two sides of the front. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is to cut out the sides. So this is the side. I'm just going to cut it out just like I did on the back pattern when I was cutting on the actual fabric. I gave some inches to the side. I am also going to cut out the armhole area, but I won't be adding any stitching allowance to the armhole. Now on the neck area, I will go up by about ½ inch from my pattern paper. So I'm marking it with my chalk, although it's not very clear. So now from the center, we are going to be adding more inches for the front because it's going to be wrapping. Okay, so I'll just measure from this center to the side and just add whatever I have from this point here all the way to the side. This way I'll be able to have that wrapping effect that will go around the body. So what I had there was about 8 inches. I marked it here and I went up by 2½ inches. So from this 2½ inches I came up by, I am just going to use my curve to just connect a curve all the way to meet the top of this point. So can you see what I have here? So it's going to look curved like this. This is the front pattern. I'm just going to go ahead and cut along the white chalk. So guys, I am done cutting it out. These are the two pieces. You can see it already has that wrapping effect. So by the time we tie it, it will look something like this. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch down the neckline area, which is this area here from the armhole. I'm just going to fold this area in like this by about ½ inch, just like you see me doing like this. I'm going to fold this neckline area all the way to this end here. I'll do the same thing for this other piece as well, and for the back piece I'm going to also do the same thing. So I'm going to fold it in like this a little bit and just stitch it down all the way to the other end. So guys, I'm done stitching it down for the back piece. I hope you guys can actually see this because this fabric is very colorful. I've done it for this neckline area of the front pieces as well. So this is what I have right now. So we're going to be leaving these pieces aside for now, and we are going to work on the sleeves. So now this is the fabric I want to use for the sleeve. I have 2 of them here for the left and right. Okay, so now I folded it into 2, and now what I did was to remove about 5 inches from my actual sleeve length from my shoulder, because this was supposed to be off shoulder. But now I think when I looked at the one I was trying to recreate, I realized that the sleeve is actually very long, even longer than a hand. So I would just advise that when you are cutting out yours, don't take any inches away. If your long sleeve length is about 22 inches, just use 22 inches so that by the time you are done, you have that long sleeve effect instead of mine that was looking short. Okay, so now once you've cut out your sleeve, you're going to fold one of the ends very wide, not too wide, about ½ inch wide for your elastic to pass through, and then make the other side very slim. So guys, the stitch down, this is the part for the elastic, and this is the smaller part, which is the end of the sleeve. So I did the same thing for the 2 pieces. and I'm just going to arrange them together, as you can see. And I'm going to bring the armhole area of the back piece. You can use any of the pieces anyways, but I'm using the back piece. So you're going to place it on your sleeve pattern just like I did here, and just go ahead and trace it out into the sleeve. So this way you'll be able to just get the same armhole for both the sleeve and the actual bodice. Okay, so I've dragged out the armhole area for the sleeve. Now this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to be passing an elastic through the casing that I have. So what I normally do is my shoulder measurement divided by 2 is 7, right? I'll just remove 1 inch from that. So the length of my elastic right now is 6 inches. So if yours is like 8, just remove 1 inch and cut it out with like 7 inches. That's just what I'm doing here, so that it will be tight. So I'm just going to use my safety pin now to just pass the elastic through the casing. So I'll go ahead and stitch this end and this end down. Okay, and now I'm going to determine where I want to place my other elastic in the sleeve. So from the end, I'm coming up by 4.5 inches. Remember I told you guys that this my sleeve is too short, so you will need to come up by about 6 inches if you make your sleeve very long. So I'm just using this 4.5 inch to draw a straight line across, so that you know exactly where the elastic is going to be placed on. So I'm going to pin my elastic to one end, and on the sewing machine I'm going to stretch the elastic as I sew along. So when I'm done stitching everything, it's going to give it some pleats on this end. So just basically stretch out the elastic as you are sewing on the sewing machine. I'll do the same thing for the other sleeve. So I'm done making the sleeves now, and you can see that mine came out really short. So when you're cutting yours, just make sure it's longer than what I have here, so that it will look exactly like what's in the picture we're trying to recreate. So now we're going to bring the back bodice, as you can see, and you're going to pin the armhole of the sleeve and the armhole area of the bodice together, just like you see me doing like this. And once I'm done pinning down the back bodice with the armhole, I'm going to also do the same thing with the 2 front pieces.
So many times that I miss you.
So guys, I'm going to go ahead now stitch this area down on the sewing machine, here, and also at the back. Then once I'm through with that, I am going to stitch in the dart for the back pattern. I'm not going to be stitching the darts for the front because we're going to be tying it, so there's really no need. I will stitch in the dart areas for the back. I'm done stitching it down now, and this is what it's looking like in front. Okay, so I'm going to turn everything over to the wrong side, and we're going to join the sleeve area and the side. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin down the sleeve area all the way through to the body, so from the sleeve down to the sides, and I'm just going to stitch it down on the sewing machine. So I'll go ahead and stitch down from here all the way through to the end, and I'll do the same thing for this other side as well. So I've stitched in the darts for the back like I told you guys I was going to do. So it's very colorful here, so it's really hard to see, but I've stitched it down. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch down the sides now and then finish up the ends. So guys, I'm done stitching down the sides and the ends, and this is what it looks like so far. I've also gone ahead to make ropes for us to be able to tie it around the body. So for the ropes, the width of the rope after I was done folding it is 1.5 inch. Okay, and then for the length here, I had about 30 inches, so it was 33 inches actually. So I'm going to be placing the rope on this edge here that we have, like you're going to have an open edge on the center front. So just go ahead and pin it down here. Okay, and this is what it looks like, and you're going to do the same thing for the other side as well. you're going to go ahead and pin it down. So for you to know how wide your rope should be, you can measure out the area you're going to be placing it on first, so that way you know exactly how wide your rope should be. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this in place, and after I was done stitching it down, this is what it looks like. So this is the final look of the whole top. That's how to go about it. Now with these ropes, I can wrap it all the way around my body in the waist area. So guys, that's all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and this is the final look of the top on me. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.